Joining me now to talk more about the company is President and CEO Rick Wilmer. Rick, thanks so much for joining us on NYSE Floor Talk.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me, Lance.
So there's been a lot of conversation recently about the challenges industries are facing with obviously rising fuel prices. But for EVs and EV charging, I feel like there's an opportunity there. What are those opportunities specifically for those industries?
Yeah, I think the opportunity with rising fuel prices is you're going to see, a pickup in adoption of EVs, which we're seeing happening now, as evidenced in the data we get from our charging network. There's other factors at play beyond just rising liquid fuel prices and the difference in cost to operate an EV versus a gas car, but that's definitely causing a behavioral change and consumers getting interested in EVs.
And charging remains, I think, a dynamic industry and a dynamic field, and yet you're growing against the challenging environment. Where do you see the biggest growth opportunities for ChargePoint moving forward besides just, what we just discussed?
Yeah, I think it's across all segments. We really divide it into three major segments. One is home charging, and we've seen a recent uptake in home charger sales, again, back to the dynamics we talked about a moment ago. The commercial market is any institution that puts a charger in its parking lot as a discretionary purchase. You can think of that as workplace, retail, hotels, everything else in between. That industry, especially retail, is starting to realize they can drive their core business by having charging available for the constituents they care about that they want to come to their place. So that market is driving. And then in fleets, where it's different than the commercial, in fleet use cases where you're delivering goods or people with electric vehicles, it's mission critical. Your vehicles have to go or your business is impacted. And in that market, it's really a TCO driven type story. If you can deliver your goods or people for less money with an electric vehicle than you can with a gas powered vehicle, people are going to switch to electric.
Are autonomous vehicles impacting charging at all? And if so, how?
A great question. We see that as a real opportunity for us. There will be no autonomous vehicle that's gas powered. They'll all be electric. The obvious ones are the Waymos and the Robotaxis and what Uber's doing with autonomous taxis. But you see eVTOLs and other use cases coming as well. Even robotics and physical AI. All that's going to be electric. So the immediate opportunity is the inflection we're seeing with autonomous taxis, and that's starting to take off. Out in where I live in the Bay Area, I mean, you go to San Francisco, there's as many Waymos on the road as regular cars. So this seems to be at an inflection point, and they do have unique requirements for charging compared to your typical, human-driven passenger vehicle. So we're paying very close attention to that market, working with the big players and making sure that we're building charging solutions that solve the problems they need solved.
How much does customer feedback play into your products, the innovation you have, the innovation you do, and ultimately, ChargePoint's mission and the goals that it's trying to achieve?
Yeah, customer feedback is huge. And for us, it's complicated because we have really two major constituencies. One are drivers that use our services, whether that's our mobile app or our chargers. Really, they're not customers. They don't really pay us. But if you don't keep them happy, you're going to disenfranchise our actual customers that are the people that buy our charging solutions from us. So we take a tremendous amount of support calls from drivers every day that want to find, use, and pay for charging to ensure that the customers that are buying our chargers, for example, back to retail, that hotel, they're actually getting more occupancy or better rates for their hotel rooms because of charging, because we're doing a good job keeping the drivers happy that are trying to use the chargers at that hotel.
So in May, ChargePoint partnered with power management company Eaton. Just first and foremost, what was the strategic rationale behind the decision to partner together?
Yeah, great question. So if you think about charging, on one side of the equation, the vehicles plug into the chargers. So we partner deeply with a lot of vehicle OEMs because I know that if you innovate technologically with the cars that plug into the chargers, you can create better driver experiences. Likewise, the chargers plug into the grid. So if we have a partner that builds the grid, which Eaton is exactly that, we can technically innovate to create more compelling, more valuable solutions for our customers than we could if we just plugged our chargers into the grid based on standards and, crossed our fingers, made sure everything worked okay. If we innovate with Eaton, And we're clearly demonstrating to this today in multiple examples, will bring more value to the market.
And so you bring up the word innovate. What does that innovation look like in practice? Because it's one thing to obviously think, hey, let's continue to progress, but to actually do it, what does it look like
There's
for
a
ChargePoint?
there's a whole variety of examples that we're working on specifically with Eaton. I'll give you a couple. One, Eaton has a technology for breakers for your home circuit box called Able Edge. Those are smart breakers. So imagine if you have a home that doesn't have a big enough electrical service to support an EV charger, but you want to go EV. With the Eaton technology combined with our charging technology, we can not only put a charger in that avoids upgrading the service to your home or your main circuit box, we also can create the ability for you to power your home from your vehicle. You may want to do that when there's a power outage. You may want to do that when energy is super expensive at peak hours of the day. With Eaton, we've created the most elegant solution, the most cost-effective solution possible to enable that use case. If you go to the other extreme for big DC fast charging, think robotaxis, think big trucks. Partnering with Eaton, we can do things on the power distribution side to make the cost of deployment and the cost of operations way less expensive. So for example, we can take a charger and Eaton electrical distribution gear, build it together on a pre-built skid, drive up to a charging site, crane that off a truck, drop it into the ground, interconnect it, and you've dramatically reduced the construction costs to build a site. There's a multitude of other examples we have with Eaton, but there's a lot of innovation that we're unlocking in partnership with them.
How does ChargePoint make sure that everything's reliable when it comes to EV charging, that there's accessibility? Because I would think those two things specifically might be some of the barriers that need to be pushed through for mass EV adoption. How does ChargePoint focus on those reliability and accessibility needs?
Yeah, good question. So reliability is paramount. Back to that driver constituency that they call us every day. Oftentimes they call us because the charger's broken. Now we really work hard to mitigate that problem. The thing with charging that makes it challenging is it's in the outdoors and it's in the general public. It gets beat up and it's subject to the weather and drivers driving into them and vandals vandalizing them. So we take a lot of care to monitor the stations remotely with a bunch of sensors. And if we detect a station that has a problem, we immediately contact the owner and go repair it. But if it's physically damaged, it may be vandalized, a car may have hit it. Sometimes you can't detect that remotely. So we've enabled all kinds of other technologies and solutions to deal with that. For example, we have a service where we'll come inspect your chargers every month and just give them a checkup and a cleaning. We will enable drivers that are using our mobile app, if they encounter a broken station, to take a photograph, answer a couple of questions that are very easy to answer, and we can diagnose that problem remotely and then send a technician to repair the station. Vandalism has been an issue with cable theft for copper value. So there we've developed cables that are cut resistant and combined that with an alarm solution where if we detect a cable getting cut on a station, we set off a bunch of bells and whistles and alarms and blinking lights to scare the thieves away. So it's a multifaceted attack to keep the charging network reliable. But I agree with you completely. It is a barrier for people to get comfortable switching to EV if they're not sure the charger is going to work when they get there.
So fascinating, these small details that you have to pay attention to when it comes to these reliability and accessibility needs, right? Like the alarms, if you see or if you're dealing with a cut wire, like these small details that I think a lot of people wouldn't necessarily think about, but yet you have to think about because you need to make sure for your customers, and this is a point you made earlier, while the drivers of these cars aren't paying you directly, the customers are paying you directly. And if the customers aren't happy because their chargers aren't working, that ultimately ends up falling on you. So these small details, I would think, are really they're so important to the whole solution.
And on the alarm system, people don't just deploy one charger. If you go to some of the big tech campuses in Silicon Valley that are our customers, they have thousands of chargers. And when thieves show up, they don't just cut the cable on one charger, they try and get the whole site. So even though they may try and cut one and damage it, if the alarm system goes up on that charger and all of its neighbors, you scare the thief away before they can do significant financial damage to a site.
So Rick, as we wrap up our conversation, what does the future for ChargePoint look like?
I'm really excited about the future. I think, we've gone through the darkest days of the EV transition. I truly believe EVs are superior products to gas vehicles. And in the world of today's high gas prices, less than half the cost to fuel an EV than it is a gas car. And the prices of EVs are coming down. They'll get to parity with gas vehicles. And they're just a better product.
Yeah.
The driving experience is better. So in my mind, free market forces will win the day. The better product will win. It's better for the environment and the climate, which makes our future very bright.
Rick Wilmer, President and CEO of ChargePoint. Rick, thank you so much for joining us on NYSE Floor Talk.
Awesome. Thanks, Lance. Great to be here.